Have you heard of the 20% rule when it comes to scaling meta ads? It's super popular, and in today's video, I want to discuss the 20% rule. I want to discuss scaling meta ads and why the 20% rule is not necessarily the best way to scale, and show you some other ways that I think are even better. I'm also gonna show you a real live example so that I can really drive my point home. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so first of all, what is the 20% rule when talking about scaling meta ads? Well, this is a vertical scaling rule of thumb that has become very popular that basically says that if you increase the budget of your campaign or ad set, depending on how you have it set up, by less than 20%, you won't trigger the learning phase on the ad set and ruin the performance or cause it to go back into learning and then ruin the performance, okay? It's basically a vertical scaling rule of thumb, okay? And for those of you that don't know, vertical scaling is just simply increasing the budget on your campaign or ad set, whereas horizontal scaling is launching new campaigns or new ad sets with either new creative, but you basically are adding budget by launching a new thing, right? Alongside the original. So in this case, we're talking about vertical scaling. So the thing about the 20% rule is, people say that it's not risky to touch your campaign budget as long as you're doing an under 20% bump. So let's say you're spending $100 a day, you just raise it to 110, for example, a 10% bump. Well, that's not necessarily true, okay? Touching your campaigns at all or your ad sets at all, whether it's the budget or the ad or really just making any changes whatsoever, does run the risk of ruining it, even if it doesn't exit the learning phase or go back into learning rather. So my point is, no matter what, if you're touching your campaign's budget, you are running the risk of potentially breaking it. And this is especially true when we're talking about smaller ad accounts, okay? Ad accounts that are spending maybe like under $50,000 a month, okay? Or ad accounts that don't have that much conversion data inside, where they're very precarious. They break really easily. It's very sensitive. Okay, with those ad accounts, you have to be especially careful because touching the budget at all could actually ruin it. So now if we're talking about bigger ad accounts that are very seasoned, that have a lot of conversion data, this doesn't necessarily apply. It's doing a 10% bump, 20% bump, 50% bump may not have that much of an impact. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So my main point here is that the 20% rule or the 20% number, it's not a magic number, okay? Touching it at all, 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, 25%, it all runs a risk, okay? And I want to show you a graphic that I made that really helps illustrate vertical scaling and the 20% rule. So check this out. So this is my Reddit post. I made this about a year ago. It was one of the most viral posts that I've ever made. It's on the top of the Facebook ads Reddit. But inside I have a little graphic here that I made, okay? And this explains the 20% vertical scaling rule, okay? So imagine you start here, right? You're at $100 a day and you're getting a 2x ROAS. Beautiful, right? That's amazing. Let's imagine that your break-even ROAS is 1, so you're doubling your money. Great. Well, here we go. You are happy with the result, so you bump the budget to 120, a 20% bump, right? And it holds. Amazing. Now we're spending 120 a day, and we're getting 2 point something X ROAS. So that's amazing. You get excited. You do it again. Okay, great. Now you still are getting pretty good results, right? You're still in that 2X range, and now you're spending $144. That's amazing. Like you're just like, heck yeah, I'm spending more, and my results are staying, they're sustaining. So you do it again, right? And this time we actually cross this point of collapse. Okay, this point of collapse, if you've ever done the 20% rule or if you've ever vertically scaled, you know what I'm talking about. You scale it, you scale it, you scale it, and then it just completely collapses. And that's super common, right? So now you see we scaled it up and suddenly you drop from a 2x ROAS to a 1.3. And now you start to try to lower the budget to try to compensate, to try to bring it back to life. And it just is never the same, okay? This is so common, guys. And every ad that you launch lives on this bell curve, okay? And all of them have this point of collapse. So if you're starting at $100 a day, maybe that point of collapse is somewhere around 200, or maybe it's 300, maybe it's 400, but there is a point of collapse. And the problem with vertical scaling is you don't know where that point of collapse is, okay? You never know. It's like you're walking up to the edge of a cliff blindfolded. Maybe there's like a pot of gold at the edge of the cliff, but you don't know where the edge is. So you're walking, you're getting closer to the money, but then ultimately you fall off and collapse your campaign. So this is my beef with the 20% rule. It can give you this false sense of security and then cause you to actually break something that was working, okay? So you have to be aware of this. So next, now that we know about vertical scaling, the point of collapse, and kind of the downsides, you have to kind of assess the risk and reward of what you're doing, right? Like, let's say you were at that $100 a day, and let's say you have an average cost per purchase of 50, okay? Well, you're at a 2x ROAS at $100 a day, and your average cost per purchase is 50. So let's say you're getting 2 sales a day. If you decide to do the 20% rule, you go from 100 to 120. Well, suddenly you've increased the budget by this like awkward amount where Meta can't necessarily get you another sale, but it's spending more. So it's gonna ruin its efficiency, potentially, okay? So you have to be aware, like, I'm risking the performance of the campaign by touching it at all, right? Going from 100 to 120. Is that worth it to me, right? You always have to ask yourself, what do you stand to gain and what do you stand to lose by making this decision? And in this case, you stand to lose more than you stand to gain, because by going from 100 to 120, you're not necessarily gonna get any more sales. And you've risked breaking the thing that's working, okay? So why, if you're risking breaking it anyways, no matter what percentage you do, why only do a 20% bump, right? Why not try to get more for the risk that you're gonna take, right? That's my thought process. That's my opinion on this. I prefer to do bigger bumps, more like 50% or 100% or 150%. Something like this. Why? Because I'm taking the risk anyways, and I want to get more for the risk that I'm taking. So let's say instead of going from 100 to 120, which with an average cost per purchase of 50, that's not even going to get us one more sale. What if I instead go from 100 to 150? Well, since I have that average cost per purchase of 50, now I'm giving Meta a chance to get 3 sales a day. And yes, I'm gonna make it exit the learning phase, but no matter what, you touching it, you're risking it. So there's a really good chance that this can work, and it actually makes a lot more sense numbers wise to go from 100 to 150 versus 100 to 120. Hope you understand my example here. So again, it's so important that you understand and ask yourself, what do I stand to gain from vertically scaling this, and what do I stand to lose? Okay, if you ask yourself that before you make any decision in the ads manager, you're gonna get way better results. You're gonna think things through and see. You're gonna go from gambling in the Meta Ads Manager to playing chess or doing jujitsu, for example. Okay, so very important you understand that. The last point that I want to make about vertical scaling is fortune favors the brave. Okay, what does that mean? I've never seen any business scale to big numbers, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue a month, millions of dollars a month, okay? I've never seen one that took tiny little 10%, 20% bumps, okay? Those businesses, it takes so long to scale that way. And you're risking it so many times by touching it 10%, 10%, 10%, 20%, that it's gonna take forever. You're playing in a very conservative way if you're doing this. And basically my point is you have to risk it sometimes to get the outcomes that you're looking for. So my main point here is that you have to be brave sometimes when you're running Meta ads, and you have to go for those bigger bumps. You have to start your new campaign at a higher budget. You have to do a bigger scale because that's the way that you truly get to those big numbers when we're talking about Meta ads. Okay, so look, I'm not telling you to be reckless with your money. I'm telling you to be very calculated. But at the same time, I'm saying, look at your own risk profile, your own situation, make the decision for yourself, but understand that you have to be willing to put some money on the line and lose some money, okay, to make money in this game. I've lost a lot of money on Meta ads, and I've also made a lot of money on Meta ads, okay? So that's why I'm willing to take bigger risks. And if you're taking bigger risks than your competitors, you're gonna beat them. I mean, most likely. You're going to most likely get farther than them if you are taking bigger swings instead of just little tiny incremental changes or risks, okay? These are my opinions. Definitely make sure that you make the best decision for you and your situation, okay? I'm not giving you an absolute, this is the only way or the highway. You guys know, if you've been watching my videos, that's not how I do things, but I do need to just make sure you guys understand that. So let's jump into a very simple example where I do this vertical scaling, and let's see what happened, okay? So check this out. All right, you guys, so we're in the ad account here. And just for a little bit of context, this is a physical product. Their break even is around 1.8 or so. And this is a campaign that I actually vertically scaled. So I want to show you kind of what happened and the thought process that I had to make this decision. So I looked at the logs here and I saw that I scaled on the 21st of July. Okay, so let's look at, imagine it was the 21st. So I would have been looking at the last 7 days before then. So Monday to Sunday, the 14th through the 20th. So this is what I would have been looking at when I was gonna scale it. 5x ROAS, okay? And I was spending $200 a day at the time. So if my break even is 1.8 and I'm at a 5x and I'm getting consistent sales, my ROAS is well above my break even, then that's a sign for me to scale. That means I'm leaving money on the table. It's time to scale. Just for a little context, this is a client that I've actually sold out of stock 2 different times. So I can scale, but I can't scale so much because of some of their supply chain limitations. But anyways, I decided I was gonna scale this thing. Now, was I gonna do the 20% rule? That would have taken me from $200 a day to $240 a day. And if you see, my cost per purchase is 38, so that actually would have made sense. Going from 200 to 240, I would have been giving it a chance to get 1 more sale per day, that would make sense. But when we're talking about taking big swings, like I'm not interested in going from 200 to 240. I'm more interested in going from 200 to 300 or 200 to 400, okay? Understand the bigger percent that you do, it is kind of a bigger shakeup. If you remember my snow globe analogy, it's like you're really shaking that snow globe. So I said, okay, let me try to not break this thing, but also scale it up a considerable amount. So I decided, let's go from 200 to 300. So you can see here, look, let's do it like this. 21st to the 31st. Okay, so actually no, let's do Monday to Sunday. So the week after I scaled. You can see the ROAS did drop a bit. I'm actually gonna show you by day. So this is the 21st. This is the day I scaled. We were at a 7x ROAS the day I scaled. And look, it dropped to 4.84 and then dropped to 1.3. A lot of people would have panicked here, okay? This is another principle that you have to know. You have to be willing to stand by your tests or the things that you do. A lot of people would have panicked here and lowered the budget back down, but I did not. I kept the spend. And look what happened the very next day. 5x ROAS, 4x ROAS, 6.25, another big drop. This would have scared a lot of people and probably made them turn it off as well, but I did not. So now if we go Monday to Sunday for the next few weeks, we can actually see, okay, average results 4.77. You can see it's recovered basically, and now we're spending more. We're spending $300 a day instead of $200. And then if we keep going Monday to Sunday, we had a couple dips here, but 3.88 still very profitable, and now we're spending more. Following week 3.9, and look, another bad day. This would have scared people. And then here's this week. Today's the 23rd of August. 5x. Okay, so I've actually recovered, and the thing is I have not touched it since I scaled it. I scaled it on the 21st and I left it for like 4 weeks, okay? And you can see that paid off, right? I went from $200 a day at 5x to now I'm at $300 a day at 5x. So that is exactly what you want. Now, what's the difference? If I would have done the 20% rule, I would have had to touch it 3 different times, shaken the snow globe 3 different times to get the same result. And it would have taken me longer, right? I would have scaled once, twice, and then the 3rd time with several days in between, right? If you're gonna do it right. And all I did was do it once, rip the Band-Aid, if you will, and we were able to scale this profitably. So very simple example. Hope that drives my point home. Thanks so much for watching. All right, you guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you wanna learn more about the technical side of Meta Ads, or you have questions that you wanna ask me, I highly recommend that you join my school community. It's called Meta Ads Mastery, and we have a 7-day free trial going on. Not only that, we have a 1-year money-back guarantee, which is the longest and strongest guarantee that you will find on school. I have this guarantee because I am so confident in the value that you're gonna get from joining this group that I will refund you every penny if you're not completely satisfied. And guess what, guys? My refund rate is 0%. So if you wanna get one-on-one access with me and be able to ask me questions anytime, if you wanna jump on calls with me twice a week, if you wanna see exclusive Meta Ads content that will help you get better Meta Ads results, then click the link in the description of this video, join up, and I'll see you on the inside. Take care, everybody.